Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the May 14th, 2024 Johnson City Regional Planning Commission meeting. If you're here to speak during the public hearing portion of our meeting, please wait until I open the floor and call you to the podium. The podium's standing in front of you. If you would come forward one person at a time, give us your name and address, then you would have 3 minutes to make your comments, and I appreciate it very much. And if you would please address your comments to only the commission, not the staff and not to the audience. We'd have better order that way. Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. Now it's 1 minute after 6. Vice Chairman Oceanbine, would you please lead us in an invocation and pledge of allegiance?
Absolutely. Please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for strength as we make decisions for the future and betterment of not only our city as a whole, but the individual citizens that are here among us. We ask that you help us with these decisions and make sure that our guided hands are of your hands. Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have before us an agenda this evening. Does anyone have any changes, additions, or changes of order for the agenda requests?
Move for approval.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. All right, the minutes for April 9th meeting have been distributed to the Planning Commission. Does anyone have any corrections for those minutes? I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Anyone have any problems? Speak up. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Now to the part of our agenda for public comment. I think we have 2 people have registered within the last day for public comment, and I think they both are here to speak to one of our agenda items. I'll call forward first. Let me see if I've got a name here. Cindy Page, are you here? If you'll please come forward to the podium and give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes, please. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Cindy Page. I live at 243 Rockingham Meadows Drive in Johnson City. And I'll just run through these real quick. I have a lot of questions.
Could you pull the mic down a little closer? Thank you.
Okay. If 306 is still the total number of houses for Yorkshire, then Phase 2 is 184 houses. Does the pending traffic study include Rockingham Meadows Drive as a result of opening the road stub in Phase 2, which I assume will be opened in Phase 2 and not Phase 1? There are 35 houses in Rockingham Meadows Drive, so it doesn't take a traffic engineer to know that opening the road stub for this development will increase traffic by more than 10%, which I understand is a violation of Code 610.1.3.1.4. For the size of Yorkshire, there isn't enough egress for all those vehicles, and using Rockingham Meadows Drive as a through street cannot possibly be within code, and in my opinion is dangerous. An insufficient short line of sight exists from the crest of a blind hill at intersection of Rockingham Road and Rockingham Meadows Drive. There have already been accidents. Speed is not being enforced. Increasing traffic also increases hazards at this intersection with potentially deadly consequences. Will the traffic study recommendations begin before construction of Phase 1 begins? Will it be comprehensive to include improvements for Phase 2? Approval of that amount of traffic on these minor roads is reckless. The expectation is that road improvements are done as part of the development phase before construction begins. Many construction vehicles are too large to traverse Rockingham Road without encroaching on the opposite lane. There's no shoulder on either side of Rockingham Road and ditches on both sides. At what part of the project will the recommended road improvements be done? How can I obtain a copy of the traffic study when it's completed? What is the approximate timeline for completion of the traffic study? Referencing Code 6.10.1.3, the proposed plan is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The density and style of the new development is not consistent with the adjacent established development, and the proposed development negatively impacts the adjoining property against subsection 1.3 of the same code. For Yorkshire, the utility easement is being used to calculate density of 306 houses on 119 acres. The density calculation on this project is deceitful. Many municipalities would not allow the land under high-tension power lines to be developed because of possible adverse effects. Without the utility easement as open space, that amount of houses would not be achievable. Today, it is allowed by this planning board, but it is irresponsible, possibly harmful, and poor planning to allow a utility easement to justify the density of the project and to be used as recreational space. If an environmental study has been done, how is stormwater going to be controlled to prevent runoff into the properties on Rockingham Meadows Drive, which sits below the elevation of the Yorkshire development? Are there any retention ponds in the plan? Is the environmental study public information? How is it accessed, and how do I get a copy of it? Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Page. All right, the next person up for public comment on Yorkshire is Mr. Tom McKee. I believe you're our past mayor, sir. Yes, sir. Happy birthday. Hold on to the podium. Hold on to the podium.
Okay. All right, I probably spent more time before your board and the city commission board than in any other individual ever. I spent 12 years on the city commission. Then I spent about half that time on the county, on the planning commission. And then after I did my service for the city, I represented most developers, out of town developers in regard to development projects, including the Sears, the project in regard to Home Depot, Lowe's, Kroger, and all those. So I probably spent more time before your commission and the city commission than anybody else in history. Now, my interest today is what my interest always has been, which is safety, period. Now, Robert knows that because he ended up getting on my crosshairs on the lake one time when he was running his speedboat without his lights on, okay? And I let his daddy know that what he was doing. And I yelled at him, I said, "Robert, get your damn boat off the rope." All right, now my situation now is I live on Rockingham Road, okay? And not Rockingham, but on Will Lane Road, which I had annexed into the city when I got off, okay? I've been in federal court and seen those things. The big guy that sits you down in federal court, he doesn't let you get back up, okay? So I don't see anybody here that's gonna set me down, but anyway, I understand that. Now, my concern here is the fact that you've got a big traffic situation. This Yorkshire subdivision, which I'm not opposed to, and I got my good friend here, Robert Thomas, who's a contractor and could not be a better citizen than he is, okay? What the problem is, you only have one exit and entrance onto Route 36, okay? And as a result of that, you've got only two roads that go to Rockingham Road, 236, two entrances, okay? Now you have Boring Chapel Road over next door to it. I have discussed with both Gerald Thomas, Joe Durandi, who's the county mayor, and the city. What the thing I suggest that you do is to build a road in between Rockingham Road and Boring Chapel Road, right up through there, so that traffic situation will be resolved, okay? So that's what the situation is. I understand that.
And you
But-
can also speak again,
Huh?
when this item comes up.
I
No,
understand.
we're not gonna be doing that, okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry, your time is up, sir, I apologize about that.
I understand that. I'm just saying you have to understand that the county can actually build the road on the part that's not annexed, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
sir,
you very
thank
much,
you
sir.
so much.
And could we get your address, please? We didn't get, sir, could we get your address for the record? Could we get your address for the record, please?
159 Will Lane Road.
Thank you very much, sir.
Farthest road on the lake.
Thank you, Mr.
Come
McKee.
out and do some fishing on my dock. You'll be in the city limits of Johnson City. Robert knows that, don't you, Robert?
Yes, sir.
I'll bring Robert just for safekeeping. All right, our next item on the agenda is the concept plan for Star Fitness on Boones Creek Road. I believe Ms. Pudney is presenting, no, I'm sorry. Ms. Hodges is presenting that. I apologize.
She is. Let me put my glasses back on. So, last month, we discussed an annexation of this property. And the zoning district that they are, that you guys have kind of endorsed is a RP district, not an RP, a planned business district. And where this is located, just so that everyone is aware, is on Boones Creek Road. What we're talking about is this front portion that's on Boones Creek Road and not the portion that faces Old Boones Creek Road. But with a planned business, that does require a concept plan. So Mr. Whitehead knows what he would like to do with this piece of property and would like to go ahead and pursue with that concept plan so that those two can match up as it comes to its final decision with an annexation. The concept plan was in your packet. It does meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. There are, in a kind of, just to go through it, the buffers are only required on the residential area, and those are here. There's sufficient parking. They will be utilizing the bike parking, so there is some reduction in parking that's allowed by the ordinance. They've provided for locations for stormwater so that as they develop their site plan, they'll know where that goes, as well as there are no new streets, but they are providing a transportation improvements of a decel lane, which was required. These are some elevations just to kind of show you what the building will look like. These parts are non-binding, but just to give you an idea. And then one thing that I kind of want to draw to your attention is that there will be law changes with annexations that go into effect on July 1st. So in this time frame, there will be public notification, which is not typical, which we don't currently do with an annexation. So the public will be notified with a letter, just like they are with rezonings. So that will, when it comes to public hearing, it gives more people an opportunity to know what's going on. There's some other things that are going on as far as, just to kind of bring this to your attention, but I'm going to gloss over because they don't actually pertain to this concept plan. But there's some sign notifications that will be different. There'll be a larger sign and it will be higher, as well as an increase from 15 days to 21 days for notification. But I bring this up just because the concept plan does have some notification, which isn't necessarily required when it's coming in as a new district. So that the new law changes will kind of help alleviate any kind of those concerns. There are some things that staff has recommended for the site plan. I just bring those up because they were in your staff report. And it's some issues with fire code that needs to be addressed at site plan. They will need a 24-foot cross transportation easement because the properties to the north are commercial. And they're in the county, but they're commercial, so we want to kind of set that up for good traffic management along Boones Creek Road. We don't necessarily want a lot of driveway cuts if we can alleviate some of that. And then there will need to be a minor subdivision in order to establish those zoning boundaries. Staff recommends approval, and then if there are some ways for you guys to vote. The applicant is here if you have questions, specific about their concept plan. And I'm here if you have questions as well.
What's the status of this having passed through the city commission from our previous action?
It has gone for first reading, so the public hearing will be on June 6th. It will be, the zoning assignment is read on Thursday for the second time. The public hearing for both the zoning assignment and the annexation will be for annexations, they get moved to the third reading.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, any questions for staff? Okay. Discussion, the question resolves now with us. Please have your thoughts ready to share. No, we don't have a public hearing on this.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Second.
All right, so let's, questions or discussion about a motion to approve?
Just one as a point of order, do we need to clarify in the motion that we move to approve subject to the recommendation?
Please do.
Subject to staff's recommendations for cross-lot access easement and things like that. So perhaps, Commissioner Whitfield, would you consider amending your motion?
Amending my motion to include the considerations presented by staff.
Second the amendment.
And I would actually add one, when you said that, I thought you were going a different direction, that if it's annexed, that you would recommend, yeah.
Agreed. Amended. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the proposal with the amendments suggested by staff and assuming the property is annexed through the city commission's actions in the near future. Any other discussion? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper.
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton.
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey.
Abstain.
Commissioner Whitfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oshenbein.
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you very much. All right, our next item is Ms. Putney. I was off a moment ago. Please come forward and let's talk about Wayfield Campground proposal.
Good evening, Commission. This is a rezoning request for a vacant property on Wayfield Drive from I-1 light industrial to B4, which is planned arterial business. The request is to rezone property roughly 18 acres, like I previously mentioned, of light industrial to B4 planned arterial business to allow for a development of a campground nature park site that would host five RV concrete pads and camping, tent, and tiny cabin structures, yes. And you can see the current zoning is I-1, Bristol Highway runs right out of view here. And it's B4 all the way off of Bristol Highway with some high-density residential on the sides and A1, and then the county properties. So the proposed B4 zone encourages commercial development along the major highway corridors, in this case Bristol Highway, where the principal uses of land are devoted to commercial establishments which cater to motor vehicle-oriented trades and services. So this is just an extension of that B4 district that's already established on Bristol Highway. The location of the rezoning is off the commercial corridor and will extend that B4 district. And it transitions, like I stated in the previous map, from the B4 to high-density residential, medium-density residential on the east side, and A1 agriculture. Future land use map calls for the property to be mostly commercial. And this is just some aerial views of the piece of property. You can see kind of the land back here. Would be very difficult to develop anything other than what's kind of being proposed, or some small scale business or structures. This is a street view. This is where the entrance would be to the campground, and the RV pads that you'll see on the concept plan would be located right here. There's a natural buffer, clearly, that is around the existing of the property, so they wouldn't have to put any additional buffering in for the development. This is the concept plan that was provided. Similar to what I stated before, 5 RV pads, 23 tent cabin and yurt campsites that are across the bridge. No vehicles will be permitted across the bridge besides emergency vehicles if needed. All camping will be done in the tents, cabins, or yurts, and then the vehicles will be parked in the parking area here. 46 spaces are required, 48 are being provided. And something different with this rezoning request that we've seen from past ones is a concept plan is actually not required for the B4 when it's not abutting single-family neighborhoods or districts. You can see in the zoning maps that were provided, it was high-density residential and multifamily districts. They provided a concept plan, however, it's not binding. So if the rezoning were to go through, they would be permitted with any B4 uses by right, and staff is okay and agrees that any of the B4 uses are suitable for that piece of property. These are photos that were provided by the applicant, and they're here today for any questions that you may have. These are just kind of examples of the tiny cabins that would be provided in the geodomes/yurts that would be an option, as well as some tent camping sites. So just a comparison, it is currently zoned I-1. And in the I-1, any manufacturing process that doesn't emit obnoxious noise or fumes is permitted. Limited commercial, such as dry cleaning, offices, self-service and mini storage, parking lots, coal yards, contract yards, bottling works. So that's what it would be permitted right now without a rezoning. B4 allows the amusements and recreation, in this instance, the campground. It also provides light manufacturing, restaurants, parking lots, garages, and it would allow for some residential on the upper floors. So the uses are very similar in nature, while also matching the existing zone off of Bristol Highway. Utilities, water and sewer are available for the proposed development. There's going to be bathhouses that will house washrooms that would require services. Any of the camping structures, the cabins and the tent, the yurts won't be in the easements of those utility locations. Traffic, and Anthony Todd is here with traffic as well. City engineers did not request a traffic study. It didn't trigger the trips per use, their matrix. So we don't have any recommendation for any improvements to the entrance or exit of Wayfield or Bristol Highway. There was concern regarding the bridge that was on the property, so the applicant had a structural engineer visit the bridge and provide documentation. Staff received the letter today, and they analyzed the bridge, and the structural engineer signed off and stated that the condition of the bridge is sufficient for emergency vehicles to safely pass over and through the property. The required neighborhood meeting was held on May 8th, where we had one property/business owner come and speak on the issue, and their concern was just the additional traffic that could be pulling in and out from Wayfield onto Bristol Highway, and the safety factor of that. Like I said, anything regarding the traffic, Anthony Todd is here, and I think he has some slides that would help answer those questions you may have. So with that, staff recommends approval to rezone the property from I-1 to B4. As you can see from the zoning, the B4 wouldn't have an unreasonable impact on the community. It extends the existing B4 district, and staff is comfortable with the concept plan provided and any of the additional B4 uses that would be permitted with the rezoning.
Thank you, Ms. Budney, for the discussion. Questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. Ronnie, with respect to the bridge, the emergency vehicles that the bridge was analyzed for, did that include a loaded fire truck?
Yes, it was. They got calculations from Lori Ratliff from Fire, and I believe it was truck 4, which is the ladder truck.
Perfect.
And they did the analysis, and it would hold for the ladder truck.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions for Mr. Todd, and probably a question, actually.
Hey, before you step down, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
The concept plan is not required, but now that they submitted it, is it now binding then?
No.
Okay.
It's, the concept plan was just provided for a, this is kind of what we want to show the requirements for parking, locations of, and so forth for the departments to review. So it can be changed.
Okay.
One other question, will the campsites across the bridge require water and sewer?
So I believe, and the applicant may be able to answer this better, the only water sewer that's going to be there is the bathhouses, and some of the tiny cabins may have a sink and a bathroom. And the utilities are already existing on that property.
Thank you, Ms. Pudney. Welcome, Mr. Todd. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for humoring us. So just the question I have really pertains to Wakefield and the Bristol Highway, and just, your opinion, level of service, and existing traffic volumes, and the incremental trips that that this development will be adding. Just wanting to make sure that we're comfortable that that's not overly burdening any further that intersection.
Sure. We did another analysis. We've been looking at it for years for a traffic signal. It still hasn't met the warrants for a traffic signal, even in our latest count. We looked at the number of trips that this would generate during those peak periods, which is the biggest problem, and the numbers were very low for this type of development. We were looking at in the AM for the outbound traffic, which would be the more problematic, only 5 trips would be expected. In the PM, it's even less, it's 3. So that's when the current peak in the PM is much higher than the AM as far as leaving, as you would expect. It's 89 right now. There are delays there now, and we're aware of that, and we keep monitoring it for a traffic signal if it were to be warranted.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Any other questions for staff? All right, seeing no other questions, I'll open the floor for public hearing. Is the developer here? Could you raise your hand? Y'all have anything you'd like to share with us? Please, yeah, if you could come to the microphone and give us your name and address.
Joe Huss. The address is 16093 Beasley Road, Foley, Alabama, 36535. I was going to answer your question as far as the utility. So there is an existing sewer line that runs through the property that already has manholes in it. And so we've already talked with Water and Sewer about tying into that. And they said that would be a possibility. And he's given us a quote to be able to tie into those existing sewer lines. And then as far as fire, they said that we could get fresh water through, if they had to put a 6 or 8 inch fire line in there, that we could just tie off for fresh water off of that. So just to kind of clarify that. Did you guys have any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you for coming down.
Yeah.
Anyone else to speak to the question? Please come to the microphone and give us your name and address, sir.
I'm Freddie Gonzalez, 114 Highland Ridge Court here in Johnson City. I've got copies of information here that for each of you, if you all allow me to give it to you.
Yes, sir. I'll give you credit for that.
I'll talk while I'm handing them out. I think you can hear me. My wife says I got a big mouth. What you have here is a printout that I've got from 911 EMS services. It shows that over the last 2.5 years, there have been 40 accidents in that intersection or in proximity. 12 of those accidents, which are yellow right there, are right exactly at the intersection. The remainder are within approximately 2 to 300 yards from it. Anthony just said he didn't think it was an issue. Several years ago, Anthony, I don't know how long ago it was, he and I went through, along with other city personnel, through a traffic study to determine whether a traffic light was needed. The ultimate determination, and the state was involved, was no. The last comment I received when I gave up, I had a file that thick. I threw it away when I got moved from one office to another, was I was told that it would take deaths, multiple deaths, for a traffic light to ever go there. Those were the exact words. They stuck right here. That's when I decided I was quitting. But now I can't. There's already a lot of traffic there. The people that are up and down that road, I have property right there on the corner, and I represent the automobile dealership, who's now my son's, and one other business there. I've talked to every business owner up and down that stretch, and everybody pretty much agrees. I don't know who's here tonight or who isn't. The traffic, not every day, all day long, but certain times of the day gets so intense that people are backed up trying to pull out onto the Bristol Highway. I don't know how many of y'all know where this is or have ever experienced it, but I would ask that you go by there and check it out, particularly during rush hours. You'll see people backed up, they get impatient, they get to that intersection, and they see a break and they take off and bang. 12 accidents in 2.5 years at that intersection right there. That's just 2.5 years. 911 can go back further, but I said I need it by tomorrow night. So I said, well, if you can buy some time, we'll get you some more information. So obviously there's more. What I'm asking is not opposed to what the Hesses want to do. I think it's great. You got property, you want to develop it, make money for yourself, and create additional property taxes for the city and the county. That's what it's all about. So only one way in and out, and that's at that intersection, no others. The traffic's already heavy. Sometimes you got truck haulers dropping vehicles off, picking vehicles off, parts, other materials backing in and out, stopping traffic. That's one thing. But you're going to get more traffic with this. We need to do something to create a more safer exit from right there. If that means a traffic study and putting the traffic light there and spending the blasting money, let's do it before somebody else gets killed. I have myself seen people get killed. I got another minute, don't I? I have personally seen people get killed at that intersection because there's nothing you can do. You can't judge the traffic coming either way. There's a hill on one side, they accelerate from pals on the other side, and you can't tell how fast they're coming. So they come out, bang, all right? The automobile dealership is further burdened that we have people get impatient, so they cut through the dealership's parking lot to get out. Myself, the only reason I didn't get hit one time is because I saw the vehicle before the lady saw me. She never saw me. So we have to use additional caution there to keep people from cutting through there, or to be careful with our customers, or my former, I'm not there anymore, our former customers and our employees out there. I'm asking if you all would kindly, if you have this authority, to ask the city or tell the city, let's do a traffic study, let's put a traffic light there before we have any more accidents, and heaven forbid, before you have another death there.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Okay? I wish you would look at that, because it's very, very real.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
And
you,
I don't
sir.
think any of us want any more blood on our hands.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak to the question, please come forward with your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name's Chad Rowland. I live at 94 Hayfield Drive in Johnson City. I own the Brothers that Just Do Gutters, and the address of that business is 3311 Wayfield Drive. So I'm down at the bottom of the hill. And I'm here to echo pretty much what he's just said. We've been in that location now for about a year. I have 4 16-foot box trucks with 12 employees that we're going in and out of there all day, and it's an absolute death trap, especially trying to get 4 box trucks out of there. I'm totally in support of what they're trying to do, but I can't imagine if you're trying to pull campers in and out of there, you're increasing the traffic load. It's not uncommon at 7:30 to 8:30. When my guys are leaving to go to job sites, we're sitting there 4 to 6 minutes at a time waiting to get out, trying to pull a 16-foot box truck into the median with traffic going each way, and then sometimes it's even worse at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I know there's a bus that stops there at 7:30 in the morning, and I don't know the exact number, but it seems like a whole busload of kids get on that bus at 7:35 every morning and stops traffic. And the traffic comes up over that hill where the Ford dealership is, And, you know, I don't know what the exact distance is. I mean, you can see it, but if you're not paying attention, they get on you in a hurry. And with kids getting on a bus there, even more reason why I think a traffic light is beneficial. We've even built that into our safety training, when we hire somebody, that we talk about pulling out of the street up there on the Bristol Highway. In my opinion, just extremely dangerous, and, you know, hearing the data that he has, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I feel like every day it's just, you're keeping your fingers crossed that nobody's going to get hurt up there. I have 2 teenage kids that work for me in the summer, and when they leave, I'm nervous for them, and I want to follow them home just from trying to get out at the top of the road. So my fear is that if we put a campground down there, we increase the traffic load, it's only going to make that situation worse. And I guess I would question, you know, the study of the ingoing and outgoing traffic. How close are we to needing a red light? And if putting another business or a campground down there increases that traffic load, does that put us over the threshold? So I would think if we do that, just add a traffic light for increased safety and the flow of traffic there in the morning and the afternoon.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else here to speak? I'll close the floor for public comment. So now the question, I think, resides with us.
Can we ask
Mr. Todd?
Mr. Todd how close we are?
Yes, Mr. Todd, could you come forward, please, again? Could you please, this is a state road, I imagine?
It is a state route, and we do have to meet what they call traffic signal warrants. And crashes do go into the formula to reduce the amount of traffic you have to have at the intersection. We still do not meet the warrants as far as the traffic, and we counted this on the 25th of April. So it would have been during school time. It would have maximized the amount of traffic that we had. And while we have seen an increase over the years, it still has not met the warrant.
Was this a 12-hour count or a 8-hour count?
Well, he actually counted it for 24 hours.
24 hours.
But we pay attention to the 8 hours, the 8 highest hours, because that's what the warrant is based on, is those 8 highest hours. There's also a 4-hour warrant and a 1-hour warrant, and we're just not quite there.
Yeah, I think, sorry, go ahead. Mr. Chairman.
No, sir. Go right ahead.
I think Mr. Cooper's question is how far are we away from that trigger? Are we 10%, 20%? Are we 200 cars within that period?
I could tell you in the
measurement?
number of hours, so we're in the neighborhood of, we're still missing it by 4 hours and an 8-hour warrant, but that doesn't mean that all 4 of those hours are a long way away. We could look at the individual hours, but we're still, 25 to 30% away in a lot of those hours.
Okay, I see. So what you're saying is there's multiple hours that are outside of the threshold.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, one more follow-up, but even during the peak hours, we're still 25 to 30% away from the warrant. Is that correct?
I don't have the percentage on the peak hour warrant. We did analyze it against the peak hour warrant, and it's going to need to be around 150, and it's at 99.
Is the peak hour 7 to 8?
It is not. It's in the evening. It is between 5 and 6.
And so my understanding, Ms. Todd, is even if the city wanted to, we can't put a light there because it's a state highway. Is that correct?
On a state highway, you have to get the state's permission to do that, and they follow the MUTCD, which we are also required to follow.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. Any other questions? Discussion? Yes, sir, please come forward. If you'll keep it brief, please.
I heard what you said about the peak hours, but 5 to 6 are not the peak hours. Okay? Let's tell you that right now. And if the state comes back and says, well, you can't because it doesn't warrant it because of these studies, well, how many people have to be killed?
What do you think the peak hours are, sir?
I'm thinking they're probably between 3 and 5.
Do you have that data to back that up?
Eyeballs.
Okay, I have to go with what Mr. Todd's
Okay.
study.
I'm right there looking at it.
Yes, sir, I understand. Thank
Right
you.
there. And how many accidents do you have to have before the state would say yes? How many deaths do you have
We
to have?
can't control what standard the
I
state
understand, but
applies.
do we not have any possible way of influencing it? I don't know.
Any other discussion amongst us? Questions?
Well, it's frustrating. Every time I've ever had to turn either way, when I was going up, whatever side of the road I was on, you have to get out into that turn lane before you can actually get to the lane you're trying to drive in. That's a dangerous highway.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're at the mercy of the state regs, but it sure is a
Frustrating.
frustrating situation.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion. I understand the pain of the Bristol Highway. There are a lot of intersections there, a lot of roads. Wingdeer Park has always been my main concern. I used to have an office in Wakefield Park. It wasn't difficult for me to get in and out, but I think you just have to be careful. And that's saying it in a minimized way. But I really like to go ahead and make a motion to approve.
I second that motion. For
All right, I have a motion to approve the rezoning from I-2 to B4, I believe. Is that correct, the motion? And I have a second. Any further discussion?
And just remind everybody here that we are just in the land use business. We're as frustrated as y'all are about some of these circumstances, but our challenge is to rule on whether the land, it's appropriate use for the land, and I agree that it is.
Any other comments? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes, but I would like to say, Mr. Gonzalez and whatnot, I live like, I don't know, just probably half a mile off the Bristol Highway. So I'm on that Bristol Highway every single day, 2 or 3 times a day. And it's very busy. And the times that you indicated are very busy. Matter of fact, I had to leave a little later today and I couldn't believe the traffic. It's a lot different if you leave an hour, 7 o'clock in the morning versus 8 o'clock in the morning. So I feel for you, but again, like Mr. Cooper said, our job is to look at the land use, and I do think that this would be great use for this land.
I'm not opposed to that at all.
Yeah.
No way whatsoever. All
Right.
right.
We don't have any other, so yes, my vote is yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Dutton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey, Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oshenbein,
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
All right, item number 3, the Yorkshire subdivision Phase 1 preliminary plat. Ms. Putney, I believe it's you.
You're going to get a lot of presentations from me tonight. All right, so this is just a preliminary plat approval. I'll wait just for it to settle down just a little bit. All right, so this is just a preliminary plat approval for Yorkshire Phase 1. Just some aerial views of the property. Rockingham Road for just references along here, and then just a zoomed in of the adjoining neighborhood that it will adjoin. And just some background on the property that is not on the slides, but heard just to address some of the public concern during public comment. The property was annexed in the city in 2002 with a amended concept plan in 2022 that showed the existing road network and stubs to adjoining properties that the Planning Commission and City Commission had approved. So this is just the actual platting of the subdivision and concept plan. So for Phase 1, it's the southern part of the property. This is future development or Phase 2. But the preliminary plat is for Phase 1, which comprises of 122 lots. All are greater than 6,000 square feet. The required, so it's zoned RP2, the required minimum lot size is 4,000 square feet, so all of these lots exceed that minimum requirement. creating 10 new public streets that are going to be built to our local street standard with sidewalks along the roads and on the bulbs of the cul-de-sac. Active space or open space requirement is 15% of just phase one, which is a required 17.89 acres. They are providing 19.56 acres, which is 16.4%, so it exceeds the minimum requirement. And of that 16.4%, 49 of it is, so roughly 9.74 acres, is active open space with trails, picnic areas, and general walking trails. So it exceeds all of the minimum requirements that is required in the RP2 district. And I don't know if I have it on another slide that will show it this well, but interconnectivity stub exists here to a vacant piece of property and 2 stubs to the future development as well. Utilities, city water and sewer are available for this subdivision. A traffic study is in the process of being completed. Anthony Todd can probably give you more detail on the timeline and what's being studied. But in preparation of those results and recommendations, additional right-of-way is being depicted on the plat for a decel and possible turn lane on Rockingham Road. So they are accounting for the possibility of a deceleration lane and turn lane and additional right-of-way. Phase one of the preliminary plat adheres to the concept plan that was approved and amended, that should say 2022 instead of 2002. That was when the original concept plan was approved. The concept plan, the 2022 concept plan is depicted on the top, and what they're proposing for phase one is on the bottom, so it's identical to the concept plan. Just a informational slide of the local streets and how they're being built, and that it meets the subdivision regulations for the streets, including the cul-de-sac with sidewalks along the bulbs. Staff recommends approval. The plat adheres to the concept plan, the approved concept plan, the zoning code, and the subdivision regulations. And as I previously stated, anything with the traffic study, I'm sure Anthony and them could give you more background on that.
All right, questions for staff?
Is the deceleration lane, the actual construction of it, paving and so forth, part of this, or is it just like providing the land for it?
So as of right now, it's just providing the right-of-way for it, because the traffic study is still in the process of being completed, so we're not quite sure the length of that deceleration lane for storage and tapering.
But, so it's not so much a question of whether or not it's required, it's a question of the dimension of it. But once that's known, that is something that the developer will be required to construct.
Correct.
Other questions for staff?
I think
This
perhaps-
property was originally annexed in 2002, is that what you said?
Correct,
And it
yes.
was annexed with what zoning code?
The RP2. Mhm.
So that zoning code has existed for 22 years?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And procedurally, just a question for staff, I mean, since this is there's a preliminary plat that is consistent with an approved concept plan, and the approved concept plan is somewhat of a vested entitlement. Great, so that's the test.
Mr. Todd, could you come up and let me ask you some questions about the traffic study? What's the status of the traffic study, if you could please tell us?
I spoke to the engineer a couple of weeks ago, and it looks like it's probably going to be at least another 2 to 3 weeks before we get it back. They've already conducted their counts, but it's a matter of them processing the counts, analyzing it, making sure they've got everything covered. So they have to look at the intersection of 36 and Rockingham, as well as the area around the front of the property.
Will that excuse me, just a moment, will that study be a public record?
We can make it a public record, yes.
Okay. And how would the public find out about getting access to that?
I suppose we could probably post that on the website.
Okay, or a date
Sure.
when they could call the office to see if it's available?
Yes, and then like with any other plat, I mean, this preliminary plat will come back after the construction plans are, the next step, they'll submit construction plans, we'll review those. Once they're approved, they'll start developing, building the infrastructure, it'll come back for a final plat. So, I mean, if we could post it online, we could also provide the traffic study at the time of the final plat as well.
So we'll have that with the final plat?
That's correct.
I think, so we'll see that next.
That's state highway, so it goes to the state for approval on the decel lane.
The decel lane will actually be on a local road, so the part that the state would be involved with would be the intersection of 36 and Rockingham.
What portion of Rockingham Road belongs to the city and what portion belongs to the county?
It goes in and out quite a bit.
I think Ms. Putney's presentation here had the zoning on it, which would. Okay. The city portion, the county portion, if I'm not mistaken, the city portion actually runs from 36 up to about this neighborhood right here, and then it turns county the rest of the way out. Unfortunately, the road was not annexed at the time of the annexation. So I know Anthony, Ms. Putney, myself, we've been dealing with the county road superintendent and all interested parties and coming up with and working through this.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions for staff? All right, discussion amongst us. I find it interesting that this property's been annexed for 22 years with a zoning code that permits this, but we're now seeing some activity on the property. I find that interesting.
That's correct.
Mr. Dutton, you seem to have something to say.
No, I'm ready to make a motion if we're
Please
amenable.
go forward.
Yeah, so in accordance with staff's recommendation, noting that the preliminary plat is in adherence with the concept plan, and therefore it's somewhat of an obligatory step anyway, but I move to recommend approval of as presented.
All right, I have a motion.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary plat as presented, which is consistent with the concept plan. Any other further discussion? Ms. Lawrence, please call the roll.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oshenbein?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
Thank you very much. Ms. Putney, you're not finished. Not even close.
I'm just getting started. The next item I have for you is a preliminary plat approval for Cardinal Forest, phases 4 through 6. Just for reference, this is a area location where, kind of following my mouse, where the proposal, phases 4, 5, and 6 will be located. You can see on the GIS, these roads aren't existing as of yet. They're just depicted on our GIS map, which is good to point out for reference. But it's where those kind of vacant property is. This is the preliminary plat. It has RP3 zoning. Minimum lot size is 4,000 square feet. 90 lots are being proposed, and all lots exceed the minimum lot size, with the smallest lot being around 5,200 square feet. Open space requirement, very similar to the last one, is 15%, where 7.5% of that must be active. Plat depicts 18%, and 7.5% of that 18 is active space with walking trails, picnic areas in multiple areas of the proposed subdivision. Sidewalks are required on public right-of-way, and they're being depicted. Streets are being constructed to the local street standard, and the density allows for 220 units for the acreage. However, like I previously stated, only 90 are being built, so it's well within maximum density. Water and sewer are available for the next 3 phases of the subdivision. There were no comments or concerns from the Water and Sewer Department. Streets, the proposed subdivision will connect to the existing stub on Grafton, where there's an existing right-of-way, Hampshire Street, and this traffic circle on Devonshire. So let me go back real quick just to put that in perspective. Devonshire, traffic circle, Grafton, stub and extension, and Hampshire. Hampshire here and Hampshire here. There is a variance request for a local street standard for the Grafton extension here for the width of pavement. The local street standard is 24 feet of pavement. However, due to topographical concerns and feasibility, the city and engineering and staff recommended 20-foot pavement with a pavement variance, as well as only a sidewalk on the north side and not on both sides of the street. And that's basically what this bullet is saying. I just wanted to kind of show you the full picture of that request. Interconnectivity to undeveloped property is being provided between lots 51 and 36 and lots 15 and 16 on Grafton. And you can see the stub here. This is 15, the 15 and 16, and 51 and 36 stub to this adjoining property. This is the variance request. So this is the local street standard with 24 feet in width of pavement, and they're requesting a 20-foot width of pavement with a sidewalk on one side instead of sidewalks on both sides. The preliminary plat for phases 4, 5, and 6 adheres to the concept plan that was approved in 2007. This concept plan is a master plan for the entire development, but you can see this is Grafton, so that's that cul-de-sac area along with the Hampshire, Devonshire traffic circle. The total plat that was approved in 2007 depicts 192 total units of all phases. With the inclusion of this 90 lot construction for phases 4, 5, and 6, there'll be a total of 180 units, so it's still under the original approved allotment. So due to that, staff recommends approval for the plat because it adheres to the approved concept plan, the zoning code, and subdivision regulations. We also ask or recommend approval for the variance to Figure 7, which is the local street standard for the Grafton Road extension.
Thank you, Ms. Putney. Questions for staff?
How does the profile of the new Grafton compare to the existing Grafton?
That is a great question, and I'm going to let our engineers help answer that, because that is something I don't know how to explain or understand myself.
Ms. Putney, before you step away, can you tell me, go more into the request for the variance? You said it was the slope.
Yes, and Wallace can further explain that. But basically, it's a very steep slope from where that stub is here and along this edge. So it's just to decrease the width of pavement and sidewalk.
Thank you.
Good evening. So one of the problems that we realized when we were looking at this is that when we put stub outs to vacant lots, we don't look at how it's going to work in the future. And so this one just didn't really work very well because we needed slope easements to create the road at it had to be cut. There's quite a big hump in there, and they put it was really a poor choice for where to put a stub out. And so in the future, we're going to look at these, but to make this one work, because we had to back off a little bit on the site, the K value on the crest of the hill there. And so we'll have to meet site distance coming back to the side road and to the other lots. And so to make the road work, to give us, to make a cut through the hilltop, we had to narrow the road up because we had to get slopes going back up either side. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does, yeah. I'm not clear why that couldn't be a wall, but I mean, what's the height of the cut? What's the depth of the cut?
The depth of the cut is, I might have it here. Hold on.
So I mean, the reason I ask, when I know that, I mean, a 20-foot road section is a narrow road section with vehicles passing both ways. So it's one thing when it's in a remote section with few streets, and when it's on a road that folks will actually use.
Yeah, no, we're going to probably have to post it no parking.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So that's really the only way to make that thing really work, is to do that. But a 20-foot wide road, you still have a 1.5 foot gutter pan, so it's not too narrow of a road for traffic to get back and forth through there. I mean, we've narrowed up well, at least when I was in Virginia, we narrowed up the state road lanes to 11-foot lanes, and that's not an uncommon practice. So this is down to 10 foot.
Right.
So it's all still workable.
What's the length of this variance, Mr. McCullough? How long of a section is this variance?
It'll be from where that cul-de-sac takes off down to where the existing road is.
And about what's that distance? I mean,
About 200 feet, I believe, something like that.
that helps me, thank you.
Yeah.
And Mr. McCullough, what would the speed be of vehicles traveling that route?
The speed limit is 25.
25.
Yeah.
So that section of road will be narrower than the existing section
Yes.
by
4 feet.
4 feet, 2 on each side.
Yes.
Okay. It's kind of funky.
And this will be the egress.
Could they not build a?
I was just going to point out that the rest of this development down here was done with 19 feet of pavement. And we increased we increased the width of the pavement in the subdivision regulations. Wallace drew the profiles largely to eliminate issues with on-street parking, not with the ability for cars to pass by each other. So with that in mind, as a matter of fact, in Phase 3, because Phase 3 was still vested, they were able to follow subdivision regulations that were in force at the time. And so the road is going to taper as it goes up this way. But this whole development was done with 19 feet of pavement. So it's not really uncommon for this right here. And again, the real need to increase the pavement width was because of on-street parking, which he's already said they're gonna post no parking signs up there. So safety-wise, that should, but I'm not sure that there's a real issue there, but easy explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reiner, that helps a lot. Thank you, Wallace.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions before he steps away? All right, any other questions for staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat as presented by staff and include the variance as requested.
Variance, thank you.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the preliminary plat with the variance to the street on Grafton. Any other discussion or questions? Ms. Lawrence, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper,
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton,
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oshenbein.
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart.
Yes.
Motion has carried.
All right, Ms. Pudney, please come back.
Okay, so this is another preliminary plat approval request along with a site plan and right-of-way dedication, so kind of a 3-in-1 deal here. This property is located off of North State of Franklin and is zoned B4. The proposed subdivision is creating 3 lots for commercial development. In the B4, any replat or subdivision of property requires a site plan to be submitted that shows proposed uses, stormwater location, curb cut location. It's not binding and can change, but it's required on behalf of a B4 subdivision. So the site plan that was provided included a proposed hotel, a proposed retail space, and a proposed restaurant. B4 requirements, front setback is 45 feet from an arterial, 35 from a collector, and 25 feet from a minor road. Rear setback is 7.5 feet for utility easements, and for this property, the rear setback would be 40 feet when a budding residential, so this property this lot would have a 40-foot rear setback. This is the actual preliminary plat that we are requesting approval for. As you can see, it just creates 3 lots, lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, and the right-of-way dedication of roughly 0.035 acres to provide frontage for the lot. So it meets the public frontage. It has access off of Horizon Lane and North State of Franklin. And water and sewer are available with no concerns. And that's stuff I just went over. The site plan depicted, as you can see, has the proposed hotel. So this lot would have the 40-foot setback from this property. These lots, there is no rear setback when it adjoins a B4 lot, so these lots do not have a rear setback. And just kind of what I stated before, Section 6.17.7, within the B4 district, any subdivision of land shall be accompanied by a site plan that addresses stormwater location, which is existing, curb cut number and location, buffering, landscaping, pedestrian walkway, utility design system, and similar factors. And this site plan addresses all of those concerns and requirements. Staff recommends approval for the plat due to it meeting the subdivision regulations as well as the site plan, and we also recommend that the Planning Commission accept the right-of-way dedication as well. And I believe the property owner is here if you have questions regarding the site plan.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, really quickly, as a point of order, and Madam Secretary, I do have a conflict of interest as it pertains to this piece, and will recuse myself from discussion and vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Dutton. All right, any questions for staff? I don't see any questions for staff, so it looks like you get a respite. All right, any question or discussion amongst us? I'll entertain a motion, if none, take that discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve the preliminary plat and the site plan as presented.
With the right-of-way variance?
With the right-of-way variance.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the the subdivision plat and site plan and the variance for the right-of-way.
Mr. Chairman, it's a right-of-way dedication, not a variance.
I'm sorry. The right-of-way dedication, I apologize. Thank you for correcting me. Any other discussion? Ms. Lawrence, please call the roll.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton? Just say abstain.
Abstain.
Thank you. Sorry, I have to have it on the record. Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Apologies, sorry about that.
All
Oh,
right, Ms.
It
Putney.
carried, there you go.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lawrence. We've got another item.
Yes, and this is my last item that I will be presenting to you this evening. I can. This is a preliminary plat approval request for the Lake Estates Lot 4, which resides in Washington County. The Planning Commission saw the final plat to this in, I believe, November for a 5-lot subdivision, and this is a replat combination of the lots 4 and 5 and changing the street length. It's off of Shady Lane. So the recombination of Lot 4 and 5 created a 10-acre tract. It's zoned A1 in Washington County, which is agriculture. And you can see on the preliminary plat here, the cul-de-sac in not existing, but road of Shady Lane that was originally approved is being requested to be shortened by roughly 100 feet, just so the cul-de-sac is not coming well into the new Lot 4 property. A variance for the right-of-way cross-section on Shady Lane for this road was granted in November of 2023 along the final plat. So the proposed new street or shortened street still maintains that approved variance. And this is just kind of information on that approved variance, since it is a preliminary plat due to the road changing. 64 feet to 40 feet and 64 feet to 50 feet right away, and a 22-foot pavement width. Staff recommends approval for the preliminary plat due to it meeting the subdivision regulations in accordance with the already approved granted variances. It meets the Washington County zoning resolution, and just for information's sake, nothing is changing except the lots were combined and the Shady Lane is being shortened. There's no additional variance requests being asked for. It's just the replat and the shortening of Shady Lane.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Okay.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat as presented by staff.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to abstain on this.
You have an interest in the project? Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this replatting and the shortening of Shady Lane, and a second. Any other discussion? Please call the roll, Ms. Lawrence.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Abstain.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oceanbine?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion is carried.
All right, you do not look like Ms. Putney. But I believe Mr. Will's up for this time.
Sorry, to be so disappointed. In that
It's a
regard.
big disappointment.
Good evening,
You're going
Chairman
to dazzle us
Dagenhart.
with brilliance, right, Will?
What's that?
You're going to dazzle us with brilliance.
Yes, and new hairstyle.
A different hairstyle.
Right.
Very fashionable.
Yes, maybe a little long on the sides. Good evening, Chairman Dagenhart, Vice Chairman Oceanbine, Commissioners. This is an old friend, so I figured that I would do the presentation on this one. Many of y'all may remember the preliminary plat for the Chase Drive right-of-way dedication. This is Hanover, so Sam's would be roughly here. This is Chase Drive. This is Chase Drive as it existed. This lot before Moss Point Development built a medical facility on the lot. And then over here is where the Vintage Apartment Complex will be developed at some point in the future, of which we have approved site plans, been reviewing building plans. We feel like they're getting ready to get going. That's important to this briefing here in a few minutes, or maybe a few seconds. This is the preliminary plat that was approved. It's simply a right-of-way dedication that, for the right-of-way extension of Chase Drive to the property line. You can see that's going from here to here. And the final plat looks very much like the preliminary plat. It depicts the right-of-way. It depicts, there is an outline here of where the road, the actual road is actually built to, but this is for the dedication of the entire right-of-way. And why that's significant is it's a little bit different than what we've seen with typical right-of-way dedications before. Because back when this was approved for preliminary plat, and when we received the request that Moss Point wanted to develop this facility, there was discussion amongst staff, of which I was a part of, and typically the developer is required to build a road all the way across the property to the adjoining property line. There was a decision made back in those days that Moss Point should be able to build this road to a point where they can access their property. So if you look at their site plan, it comes in here, then they have a private drive that comes up here. At about that same time, Vintage came in to develop the adjoining property, and they would need a second point of access to meet fire code, to be able to come from, because this property comes from here all the way over to the other street, so they would need a second point of access to access this property. So when we presented, I think most of you were here at that time when we presented this for preliminary approval. There was a civil agreement made between the two that they would build their portion of the road to a certain point, and then Vintage would connect the road, because they both needed the access. We were okay with that. That still is a civil issue. With that being said, they have constructed their portion of the road. I have spoken with a representative from Vintage that's in charge of that project. They are still intending to build their portion of the road, but we need to guarantee that this could be built if that project fell through. So with that in mind, Moss Point realizing this, they have agreed and were fully willing and expected to have to post a bond for the completion of the rest of the road. Why I even need to tell that story is that typically and that bond estimate is for $60,000. It includes $50,000 for road construction and $10,000 for as-built. As-built are just plans that depict what was actually built. So we're gonna bond those until the whole road actually gets built. Why that's significant, here's a picture of the road and its completion, and this is where this is the point that it's built to, and so this is the remaining portion that has to be built. Our subdivision regulations say that you can bond the final layer of the road, so typically the rest of the road needs to be built. However, this was an unusual arrangement that was agreed upon by current and previous staff members to get us to the point where we're at, which isn't a bad point. It's just a little bit unusual and a little bit unusual request for the commission. So that's the subdivision regulations 14.1 says all proposed roads must be graded, have a gravel base, and binder asphalt layers shown in the approved construction plan. The previous paragraph, we can accept a bond for the final asphalt layer. Subdivision regulations also state that Planning Commission can grant a variance to anything in the subdivision regulations. So, City Engineer Wallace McCulloch and I, Ms. Pudney, we had numerous conversations about how to approach this. That road is in use. They are actually, Moss Point is occupied and operating, I believe they're already, they have a certificate of occupancy. I think they're open for business. So that road is in use. The city engineer would very much like to get the road dedicated, but we need to dedicate the entire length of the road. Otherwise, if we just accepted this, one, we'd have to go back to preliminary plat. Two, there might not be a guarantee that the rest of the road would ever get completed. So we need to dedicate the entire portion, and we're asking for a variance to this regulation to accept a bond for the full cost of the road, in which case, if the Vintage development fell through, then the road could be built, and we could all go about our business. So it's really not that complicated, but I felt like it needed a good bit of explaining because it is a bit of an unusual request. So with that in mind, we would recommend, and with all of this right here, you may have seen that, don't panic, those were variances that were granted back in the preliminary plat phase. We recommend approval because the final plat meets the requirements of the Johnson City subdivision regulations. Here's to previously granted variance requests, and to approve the variance request to section 14.1 of the Johnson City subdivision regulations and accept the $60,000 bond to cover the cost of incomplete work.
All right, any questions for staff?
So the property owner that possesses or Moss Point is providing a right-of-way for the adjacent property, but they're responsible for building the road to get to that property?
They are responsible ultimately for building the road to that property. Now, Vintage agreed to build a portion of that road. Moss Point has posted a bond, so if that road's not built by Vintage, then they would either complete the road or we would cash the bond and complete the road.
But if Vintage does build the road, then you're not out of pocket anything.
They're not out of
other than the
pocket.
cost of the bond.
Well, we would reissue that to them, or we would
Okay.
we would not
Oh,
cash
okay.
the,
Release
we
it
would
from
we
the
would
bond.
release the bond. We'd come back to you to release the bond, and we wouldn't cash it.
Mr. Rutter, is there a time frame that this road has to be built?
It's supposed to be done within a year, and if it's not, we would come back here to get an extension of the bond.
Other questions? I'll hear your motion.
There were a lot of conditions there, so I'll bring,
Yeah.
I'll bring this back for you.
Thank you.
I'm happy to put forward a motion, Mr. Chairman, for approval of the final plat and the right-of-way dedication, as well as variance request for section 14.1 and accepting of the bond.
Thank you very much. I
Second.
believe that's complete, and it's second. I have someone fighting to second. So I have a.
Second, I beat him.
So I have a motion and a second to approve the, oh gosh. Approve the final
What he
plat,
said.
approve the variance request to subdivision regulations, and accept the $60,000 bond. Any other questions? Ms. Lawrence, please call the roll.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper?
Yes.
Commissioner Dutton?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes.
Commissioner Whitfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Oshenbein?
Yes.
Chairman Dagenhart?
Yes.
Motion has carried.
All right, any other business before us? Seeing none, I'll call the meeting to adjourn.
Sheesh.